Good afternoon, collectors and friends. Welcome to Trading Card Therapy, episode number 124. We are just a few weeks away from the National. We'll be covering that, the T206 Honus Wagner, a 52 Topps Mickey Mantle, and much more today. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy hobby content like this, I encourage you to subscribe to our Just Collect YouTube channel at Just Collect. All right, without further ado, I wanted to share with you folks a highlight of a collection that we just got, believe it or not, through the mail. And this is certainly no ordinary highlight. I'm about to show you a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle, which of course is the best card and the most valuable card in the 1952 Topps set. Card number 311 is the high number. Some say it's the rookie, others say it's not. We're not here to debate that today. But what I am here to show you is, check this out. This is the Mickey, and at first glance, it's tremendous. I mean, the eye appeal is fantastic, beautiful color. Now you can see, of course, it's off center, left to right, a little bit top to bottom. But if you look closer, on the bottom edge, bottom edge appears to be trimmed. Okay, so we're going to send this to PSA. But before we do, we have to take it out of the case, out of the screw down. And I'm curious, those of you who've been collecting for decades like myself, have you ever put cards in these type of screw cases, screw downs? I did when I was a kid. In fact, whenever I would get a key card, I call it a screw case card. I'd have to go out and have enough money to get that screw down for that particular card. But what people have found in the industry over time is two things. Number one, sometimes when it is compressed like that, especially over years or decades, it can compress the card and literally change the shape of it, meaning making it skinnier, which of course is not good for the card itself, and it's not good to try to get a high grade on a card like that, as PSA will often put that kind of card in an authentic holder. And the reason they will is because the card itself has actually been distorted from its original shape, ever so slightly, albeit, but nonetheless. But the other key thing to keep in mind when you have cards and screw downs like this for decades is there does remain the possibility that it could get stuck to the case. Now, what I'm hoping here with this card, because someone put it in some sort of, soft sleeve, penny sleeve type holder, that it's going to be okay. But we are going to, in the next day or so, remove this card from the case, and we're going to do so on, I believe, our Instagram channel, which is at just_collect on Instagram, as well as my IG account, which mainly focuses on vintage cards. I'm sure you're shocked. That's Leighton_Sheldon. And we're going to show you live as we unscrew this mantle from the case. We, of course, have our fingers crossed and hope it all goes well. But we thought that we would do it on camera for a number of reasons, of course, just in case something is wrong with it. It would be recorded. But then we thought we'd share that with you, the collecting public. And I'm hoping, of course, that this beauty comes off cleanly. And even though I expect it fully to get an authentic holder because of the bottom edge, it's got great eye appeal. So we want to start off the show with something fun. We'll let you know how that comes out in the next episode of Trading Card Therapy. And along with this card came the balance of the 1952 Topps set, all the high numbers, the Jackie Robinson, the Pee Wee Reese, the Campy, then, of course, some of the other key cards in the set, including the Willie Mays and the Pafko and the Billy Martin rookie and all that good stuff. But we'll be sharing a full video on that collection. Once again, you'll be able to check that out when it comes out on our Just Collect YouTube channel. So I would highly encourage you to subscribe because it's not just Trading Card Therapy that's on there, but there's sometimes some really cool hobby content like the videos behind some of these amazing collections that we are fortunate enough to acquire. That is the scoop with the 1952 Topps Mantle and the set that we are hoping to work out a deal on. So next up is, if you've been sleeping under a rock on social media, then you, or from social media, then maybe you don't know. But the last few days, a CGC restored example of a T206 Wagner coming up for sale in Love of the Game auctions. And what's interesting about this Wagner, which has an incredible hobby provenance, It's known as the die-cut Wagner. And the reason why it's known as the die-cut Wagner is because, who knows when this was done, but it was supposedly initially discovered by and bought by a card store, ironically, a New Jersey card store in the 1970s. The card was bought by them for precisely $1. And the reason why they were able to get it for $1, because the Wagner was already a famous card in the 1970s, is because most of the card was actually cut out, and thus the name, the die-cut Wagner. And so if you fast forward from there, that card traded hands a few times. I believe Woody Gelman did own it at one point, who was someone, of course, very prominent in Topps history. And I believe at some point, REA, Rob Lifson owned the card. He might have been the first person to buy it for a few $100s in the 1970s. And you could read the full story about this on Love of the Game's website, as they're going to be bringing it up for auction, or putting it up for auction very soon. What really caught me off guard was not necessarily the fact that it was the die-cut Wagner, which I was familiar with. And I was familiar that Keith Olbermann supposedly had owned it, so that wasn't a surprise. But what was a surprise to me was that this die-cut Wagner was restored, and that's actually not the shocking part to me either. But it's being showed off as one of, and not necessarily technically one of the highest graded, but as one of the most attractive T206 Honus Wagners out there. And as my editor, or our editor here, Joe, is going to show you on screen, that this T206 restored Honus Wagner, to me, looks very yellow, like a Savannah banana type yellow. And as I'm about to show you on the screen, another, it's not a T206, but another, I would call it famous yellow Wagner, an E95. We happen to have one in stock here at Just Collect. But you can see that the Wagner that we're showing you that's restored by CGC is much closer to this E95 yellow than it is the definitive orange background of the Wagner. And what I also find a little bit confusing about it is that the T206 set has some other cards that have orange type backgrounds. And so I would love to ask Al from Love of the Game, and to be clear, Al did not, I don't believe, do this restoration on the card. Al's company, Love of the Game, is just selling it. But I would love to ask him, and I'll ask him at the National, why do you think the person who worked with the conservator and the conservator decided to go with a very obviously yellow type background? Was it intentional, meaning to be different? And if not, why were some of the other orange type background looking cards in the T206 set not used in this case? So I ask you, the collecting audience, the collecting hobby, if you were faced with, and now Joe, I'm queuing up here, the die-cut Wagner or the now restored die-cut Wagner authenticated by CGC, which one would you prefer for your collection? Not just because I'm a purist, but also because, candidly, I just do not like the way that this restoration job came out, specifically the color. I think that everything else looks nice, the full border and all that wonderful stuff. But the fact that the color is so off, and that the color, to me, resembles more of the E95 Wagner, I'd prefer the die-cut version. But please, let me know in the comments. I would love to know which side of the fence you fall on. All right, moving on. If you haven't heard, there's a couple big card shows coming up this month. We got Fanatics Fest. I believe you have the Dallas show. But the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart is definitely the National Sports Collectors Convention. For full transparency, I've been setting up, or our company's been setting up at every one, I believe since the late 90s. Or excuse me, yeah, late 90s. I haven't missed one since Atlanta, I believe. And then I worked for Leland's from 02 to 06. But obviously I was still attending the National. And then that year, our company was founded, Just Collect, 20 years ago. So we've been exhibiting as Just Collect formally for 20 years. But I've been going to the National whenever the last time it was in Atlanta, which I believe was the late 90s. When did you start going to the National? Or If this year is your first time, let me know in the comments what you're most excited about. My list is very long, so I won't bore you with that. But what I did want to talk about in regards to the National is I have, I would say, the regular run-of-the-mill tips, which I'm going to kind of just gloss over, which is stuff like, wear comfortable sneakers, make sure you bring a cell phone charger, bring snacks, because waiting online for a granola bar and a bottle of water just not only gets expensive, but really old. Like, you're there to buy cards and shop and talk. You're not there to wait online for 26 minutes every time you need a bottle of water. So, I'm not going to run through that list. If you want to check out some of our previous year's episodes, you can do so on our Just Collect YouTube channel. And for those that don't, watch YouTube, our podcast, Trading Card Therapy, can be found also on Spotify and Apple and those types of other places where you can enjoy audio podcasts. So I wanted to mention that. But some of the things I wanted to mention as far as tips that I'll call them new additions, okay? The first one is get there early. And so what I mean is, even if you can't get there on the first day of the show, whatever the first day of the show is, I would try to get to the convention as early as possible. Because last year, from what I recollect, the lines were literally not just out the door, but they were around the corner. So if you're able to get in on a Wednesday night and you're going to be going to the show first thing Thursday, if the admission is 9 a.m., I know it might stink to get there at 8 a.m., right? Or something like that. Maybe you grab a breakfast, you bring a book, you get your favorite TV show queued up on your cell. But that would be my advice, so that you can enjoy the convention for as long as possible. And the reason why I say that is because, speaking from experience, of course, I do this professionally, but I also love collecting, and I still am very much an avid collector, and I spend time at the National every year. And I can also tell you at the end of every show, I'm always upset that I did not have enough time to walk around for myself, and to be fair, even for the business, because the show has become so large in terms of its square foot imprint, I'm not able to enjoy and see the entire convention. So that is why I'm suggesting get there early. If nothing else, you'll have more time and avoid some of these insane lines. Now, another thing is, and it probably goes without saying, but the National, and their website, I believe, is nsccshow.com. It is chock full of great info for the National. And one of those pieces of information, I believe, is they not only have a list of the dealers that are coming. So, for example, if you want to see Just Collect, we'll be on there. It's booth 301 and 303. You can come meet us. You can also come meet our auction wire team. My co-founder, Mark Mandel, will be there. So in addition to finding, let's say, your favorite dealer, maybe you've heard, for example, that there's one Japanese dealer every year, and you've been intrigued by Japanese cards over the last year. Well, you may not want to necessarily, try to find and look on foot over hundreds of thousands of square foot space, that one, let's say, rare Japanese dealer, whatever your choice is as far as collecting. But my suggestion is to review the floor map before hitting the floor. And I'm not sure if they'll have an interactive map this year. I'm not exactly sure how it goes. But at the very least, you'll have a list of the dealers and where they're going to be. And so if you have some of your favorites, like Levi from 707, I mean, he's been around even, longer than me, decades. And he's a classic, not just a dealer, but he's such a fun person to see at the show. And others like him, like Kevin Savage and many auction houses, like Leland's and Memory Lane and Heritage. Maybe you didn't realize that, for example, REA has not only a booth in the corporate area, but they actually have a booth on the floor. I think same thing with Steve Hart. Like, he has a booth for singles on the floor as well as a booth in the corporate area. So these are all the kinds of things that you're going to want to know, if possible, before hitting the floor of this year's National Sports Collectors Convention. So another, I believe, was somewhat newish for me, in regards to walking around. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I discovered this pain point firsthand. For the last several years, I was trying to not only take pictures of the items I was interested in as I would go, so I wouldn't lose track of the visual, but then what I would do is, only on occasion, is I would write the booth number, and then I would text the booth number after the item. But I found that to be a little bit difficult, because after a few days, as you can imagine, I had dozens and dozens of pictures to go through. So what I've started to do now is I take a picture of the item, and I know it's old school, but I got my trusty pad, and I will literally make a list, E95 Wagner, booth 301, and that way I'll at least have a very easy list. If I'm looking to review at the end of the day, I'm really interested in these 3 cards. I'm going to do some research tonight in the room. Tomorrow I'm going to hit the floor. Well, instead of having to scroll through my phone, depending on what day of the show was, I could already have dozens, if not 100 plus photos. I find it much easier that if I want to reference the photo, it's still in my phone in the photos. But if I now have this master list of not just what the item is, but the booth number in a handwritten way, it's a lot easier for me to glance at that and kind of get back to maybe that item I'm trying to secure for my PC or for the company. Either way. So one of the other things I wanted to mention, and this was something that was shared by our very good friend Jim Ector, is he said that there is just so much there. And if you go in with your list, because I was going to advocate you should have a list, but we could end up making this whole episode about the National. I don't want to do that. He was just saying that make sure you try to allow enough time to be present, because it's so overwhelming. There's so much to see. You're not going to see everything. Even if you come with that list and you check it twice, right, and you've got some things off of your list, allow some time to just breathe and relax. And maybe, I'm making this up, have 5 or 10 or 15% of your budget for the show allotted for fines. And it may not be a fine, but something that was not on your list originally or initially. And from what Jim told me from his last several years of going, and I wanted to pass this along to you all, is whether you're a seasoned vet or you're someone who's coming to the National for the first time, I highly suggest not, of course, being only organized with a list, but making sure that you try to enjoy it for what it is, which is an experience, not just about shopping and securing a card. It's about seeing some friends. Networking is something else I wanted to mention. I think I mentioned that before, but nonetheless, I wanted to mention that. And one of the last things that I wanted to cover, to be clear, I forgot who it was, but I saw this, and if I remember, I'll put it in the the write-up for it. But be careful of anchor pricing. And anchor pricing, I guess, could mean different things to different people. But what I'm referring to here is, let's just say I'm making this up, right? You're going to buy some cards, and you come across a booth, and it doesn't matter what the cards are. It could be memorabilia, and everything is $250 and up. But then they have a section that's $35 an item, or $25 an item, right? I've seen a lot of that. Like this whole case is $25 each. Just because everything else is expensive at that individual or that company's booth, $250, $500, $1,000 plus, doesn't mean the items in the $10, the $25, or at $99 level are a good deal. So just be careful of anchor pricing. Be cognizant of that is a practice that some utilize, and just have your wits about you. Now, if you're not sure, whether it be myself or other dealers, certainly there's going to be tens of thousands of collectors that most people are willing to help you if you have a bona fide, legitimate question and you're trying to purchase something for your PC and you're just not sure. There are folks that are out there that are willing to help you. So reach out. I know that I'll be willing to help. So hopefully you appreciated those tips. If I've missed, let's say, a glaring one or two, let me know. Keeping in mind, I didn't run through the full gamut of tips that we've done or we've covered over the last few years. And I specifically did that only because I wanted to make sure that, it was not repetitive. It was fun. It was fresh. But I also welcome all of you out there who are watching or listening to let your fellow collectors know or friends know. I have a buddy who's coming in for a couple of days, not a collector, just really excited to experience the World Series of card shows, the National, in just a few weeks. One of the last things I wanted to cover today is Auction Wire will be set up with Just Collect at the National. We are going to be booth 301 and 303. So if you'd like to come by, we'd love to share with you. If you're especially looking for more info and you're on the fence about signing up, if you're not sure exactly what we do, if you are someone who is already in our community, we'd love for you to stop on by, give us feedback, tell us what you love, tell us some things that you'd still like to see be part of Auction Wire. We have new features that we're going to be sharing with you, the public, at the show for the first time. Some of them are very exciting. A couple now that we can touch upon are, I believe we're now at 40 plus platforms. So that just is not just in reference to, auction houses, but also dealers such as Ash from Legacy Cards, myself from Just Collect, and others are being added, I believe now weekly. So I think that's a super cool feature, because I know as a collector, right, especially going into the national, it's a little bit overwhelming to think about my want list. So what I'm doing is I'm utilizing Auction Wire, and of course I love that they have some now dealers included, to see what's available on either auction or at fixed price, let's say like an REA or on eBay, or some other places as well, meaning like dealers and such like Ash. And before I go to the national in search of another 1948 Leaf Jackie Robinson or a 51 Bowman Mickey Mantle or things of that nature, I like to see what's available for sale, so that when I hit the floor, I got a little bit more pep in my step, because I'm educated with what's available for sale, the pricing for it, the quality of that card to the best of my ability to see that online, and then taking that information and utilizing it to try to get the best card for my buck at the national. So that is it for today's show. I had something else that we're going to cover in the next show, but I'll kind of give you a sneak peek. It's all about how we're now dealing with PSA has shut down bulk grading, not just for vintage, but for modern as well, for at least the foreseeable future. And I'm going to talk about the types of cards I'm submitting, who I'm submitting them with. And so if you'd like to hear more about that subject and lots more hobby talk, please make sure you tune in to our next episode of Trading Card Therapy. And until then, enjoy your hobby journey, and I hope to see you real soon. And if not, and you're going to be at the National, please stop by in person. I'd love to meet you and talk hobby at the National, booth 301, 303. Just Collect an Auction Wire. See you real soon. Hey, it's Leighton from Just Collect, and I wanted to give a special shout out to a company called SKB Cases. And the reason why is I started using these at card shows specifically when I travel, when I go on planes. And for me, whether I use the smaller one, which fits about 90 cards or so, or the larger one, which fits about 140 cards or so, they're both excellent. They're waterproof, they're military grade, they guarantee them for life, but most of all, they're very easy to use. So whether it be you're going through the airport or a card show where a lot of us like to hang out, they are super easy to use, and they're gonna keep your cards safe, as well as, I don't like when I have the cards in my backpack sometimes at shows, and people are bumping into me. I don't know if they open the zipper. Meanwhile, you got this bad boy with you or this one, you'll know if someone's going into it while you have it on you. So check it out, you heard it from me. Thanks for stopping by.